The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
The Vancouver Canucks begin their regular season tonight, and you know there's a lot of pressure on this team to start off right. But which Canucks are facing the most pressure this season? We're going to tell you next here on Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, Canucks writer for Daily High Vancouver and co-host here on Locked On Canucks. And before we dive into the show, I gotta let you know today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper.
Whoa.
Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. And I also got to let you know, if you're not already subscribed to Locked On Canucks, if you're going to do it today, okay? The first day of the Vancouver Canucks regular season. Yeah, we're recording this on Tuesday because I'm gone all day Wednesday, but I will be back in time for the game, baby. On today's episode, set off the top, we're going to talk about 7 Canucks who are facing the most pressure heading into the season. Also want to touch quickly on the Hughes Hronek pairing that we saw during preseason action, and we'll end by talking about how the Vancouver Canucks can beat the Edmonton Oilers and will beat the Edmonton Oilers on opening night. But first and foremost, Kyle Bowen, my co-host, what's going on, brother?
I'm doing fine. Okay, I'm doing fine. We just recorded a quick hit on Elliot Friedman hating the Vancouver Canucks, so I got a lot of that pent up emotion out of my chest, and now I think I'm able to be a little bit more rational on today's episode. I'm sorry, where we're talking about the literal start of the season. I can't believe we got here, because Trevor and I started this program. Joined this program when? In late March, the season was over, nothing was really happening, blah, 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 Hronek, blah, blah, blah. Let's just assume until we don't have to assume anymore. And now today is real. There's reality today, and I know we're going to talk about it later, but how are the Canucks going to beat the Oilers over the next 2 days versus why we have to beat the Oilers over the next 2 days is a very, very important conversation. No, it is, because there's a lot of noise, and it's the pressure from within. It's the pressure from the West Coast. It's Elliot Friedman too. Like, dude, there's a lot of things going on, and we have to somehow beat the Oilers twice to start off the season so we can get that confidence and kind of lean on that statement, okay? Winning fixes everything. Anyways, again, Locked On Canucks, Kyle Bowen, Trevor Beggs. I'm feeling the pressure, I guess, too, because I gotta think about this, people. Let us know in the comments below. Do we need a post-game show here? Do we need a pre-game show here? I'm gonna feed the people some Locked On Canucks energy. Anyways, Trevor, start the episode off. The Canucks under pressure. I'm curious to know who you have at the top of your list, and be kind, be optimistic. Okay, it's a very sensitive day here on the West Coast, the best coast of Canada.
Yeah, and you know what? I guess this isn't necessarily optimistic or pessimistic. It's just, in my opinion, 7 Canucks who are facing the most pressure this season. And I know these are all professional athletes. Everyone's facing pressure to a varying degree. But in my mind, these are the guys who are facing the most pressure. So I'm going to count down from 7 to 1. I'll kind of rip off 3 guys at a time, and then on number 1, I'll tell you why I think that's the Canuck facing the most pressure. At number 7, I have Carson Soucy. At number 6, I have Brock Besser. Number 5, I have JT Miller. So with Carson Soucy, to me, that's a guy who's only been a bottom pairing defenseman throughout his career. And the Canucks signed him to that contract with the expectation built in based on the dollar value handed out that he could be a top 4 defenseman at some point over that contract. Now, we're going to talk about Hughes, Hronek, and the Canucks defense a little later on. But, I mean, you look at this defense, and they could desperately use anyone to step up into a top 4 role. Carson Soucy did not look like that guy during preseason action. And I think there's going to be some pressure based on that contract, especially if he underperforms, to be that top 4 pairing guy. But whether he can be that guy, I'm skeptical of it. Brock Besser in at number 6. This guy's coming off 2 seasons. I think last season was better than most people give him credit for. But at the end of the day, it's like I'd still like to see this guy be a top line player. I think he can be a top line player. I think I say at least once every 3 shows that I want to see him on the top line. Maybe that would help him be a top line player. But I think it's pressure on the guy, right? He's kind of gone from being this darling player, good looking guy to being considered maybe overpaid. At number 5, JT Miller. This guy just kicked off a 7-year extension paying $56 million. So there's not pressure from the point of view of getting paid, but there's pressure from the point of view of being on a successful team, right? JT Miller's been to Vancouver for 4 years now. 3 of them have not gone well. He's going to be asked to play a major role in this team. And let's hope he can step up, man. He's one of the most important guys on the team. And I think for that reason, he's going to face a ton of pressure.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's at number 5 on this list because again, the contract kicks in now. He dropped off when it came to points last season. I would say significantly, like 99 points to 80 points, I think the number is a lot. That's like 19 less goals produced by your stick and others. It's one thing to call this guy the most important player on the Vancouver Canucks or one of the most important players, but I'm going to use the term the X factor because if he comes back and becomes that 90-point guy again, on top of Pettersson in a contract year, exceeding expectations, on top of Quinn Hughes, shooting the puck more, being more dynamic, being more authoritative, putting the team on his back, and then Demko, who, again, it was a weird preseason. It really was. But Demko, that dude looks clean. He looks smart. He looks poised. He looks confident. So if you put JT Miller or the resurgence of JT Miller in that mix that we've been talking about, right? The Hughes, Pettersson, and Demko's saving this team, there's an easier chance for, again, this team not only to beat the Oilers, but to be consistent throughout the year. And they need him. They need him to do it. And then you brought up Brock Besser, who's probably going to be his line mate early on, which I don't like at all. But somehow, some way, these two have to find a way to do the most. And again, exceed expectations. And I'm not having my doubts about Brock Besser. Is he just going to be a point supplier, or can he be a play driver? I think this is the year where we find that out. Again, is he just going to be a floating guy who gets points and he's important to lines? He's a complimentary piece. But again, that mixtape came out earlier last week about Besser's rookie season. Can he get back to that? Can he electrify? Can he do that? Because if he can, then you throw him into the mix as being one of the top 50, top 60 offensive players when it comes to forwards in the league. Then you got a pretty elite offense. He can really take this team to the next level, and I hope he does, man. I'm scared, man. Hey, Trevor, take the mic away from me, okay? Before I go down a dark path.
Hey, it's all good, man. Let's instead of you going down the dark path, let's go further down this list. And again, join in on the comments. Let me know if you disagree or agree.
Wait, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Line mates aside, like you being one of the biggest Brock Besser fans I know, like how does he do it? What does he have to do? Is it as simple as having fun, or is there something specific in his game that you want him to do more?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's something specific in his game that he can get better at. Like, I think his defensive awareness is pretty good. Obviously, his shot's good. I think his playmaking's gotten better. A guy of his size, I'd probably like to see him be a bit more physical, but I don't know if that's in his DNA. I'd like to see him be a bit faster. I don't know if that's in his DNA either, although
Move on,
I guess
dude.
you could get a skating
Come on,
coach.
man.
But, to me, it's line mate based, right? And that's why I've said it time and time again, put Besser on the top line with Kuzmenko and Pettersson. Stop pussyfooting around with Besser and Miller together. It just has not worked. And
it's not dynamic.
I don't see it
it's
working
not dynamic.
Going forward.
Those two together, it's not dynamic.
It's a mediocre flat duo.
Yeah, when it comes to their chemistry. The chemistry is mediocre. Anyways, who's number 4?
Yeah. Number 4 is likely going to be the MVP of the Canucks this season, Elias Pettersson. Okay.
Whoa.
I think Pettersson, people expect him to be, the best player on this team. People expect him to get 100 points this season. Like, there's pressure on this guy, right? Like, I think if the Canucks are going to make the playoffs, he's going to have to be an MVP-like season. So maybe I'm too low on the pressure list for Pettersson. I'll say that he's put a lot of pressure on himself with this whole contract situation. By the way, if you haven't heard us talk about that, we talked about that on yesterday's episode of Locked on Canucks. At the end of the day, I just came down to, I think there's 3 other guys who are probably under more pressure than Elias Pettersson. And I think being in Vancouver for quite some time, the guy, he's used to the pressure.
No, I want to touch on that. Okay, that's a good observation. He's used to it. He's been here. He's cerebral. Like, how can there be a lot of pressure? Like, how can this guy have the most pressure on himself when he's one of those guys who can make love to the pressure, you know? I think the Canucks are calling it meet pressure with pressure, but we like to call it, and we're kind of stealing this from Steven Jackson, like make love to the pressure. I think Jamie Foxx said that. Anyways, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, this guy's banking on himself. He's also saying things like, oh, the media, the media's making this contract thing a big deal. Like, bro, again, you went on a train ride with Elliot Friedman, the most dangerous guy in Vancouver, for real. The most dangerous guy in Vancouver. And you decided to talk about or answer the question regarding your contract that way. Just giving us a little juice. Like, the pressure's on, bro. The pressure's on not only to, like, sign here, but you're going to bank on yourself and pretty much tell the world that, no, I want to be paid, but more notably known as one of the most elite players in the NHL. Well, if you're going to think that way, there can't be a scapegoat of the lack of depth or the Canucks being dysfunctional. How about you just be an elite athlete that can produce wins for your team, that can produce confidence throughout the lineup, that again can raise the floor? It's on him to do that. It's on Hughes to do that. But for me, there is a little bit of, actually a lot of pressure for him to do that. But again, he's one of those guys, and we know this about him. We've seen it in the past. He's a guy who makes love to pressure. So I kind of get why you're giving him the benefit of the doubt and putting him lower on this list. And yeah, before I go negative again, I'm not trying to do this. I'm not trying to go negative, okay? I'm trying to be happy here, okay? I'm just trying to be happy. I was about to talk some ish. But Trevor, give us the rest of the list, okay?
Plus, it's game day, baby,
Yeah.
okay? And again, let's touch on the game at the end of the episode so this has a bit more of an evergreen nature to it. Let me rip through the last three names here. At number 3, I have Quinn Hughes, Captain Quinn Hughes. At number 2, I have Philip Hronek. And at number 1, I have Thatcher Demko. I'll touch on Hughes and Hronek quick. I know we're going to get to them in segment 2. But the Canucks defense, it's still a mess, okay? If the Canucks are going to do anything this season, Hughes and Hronek got to play. You know, both, I would say that both have to be number 1 caliber defensemen. And I think for Hughes, he can handle that. Again, it's a lot to put on this guy's back. But for Hronek, this is new territory, I'd say. You know, he's been there before for a bad Detroit team. Can he do it on a playoff team? Is he ready for the pressure cooker that is Vancouver? I think I've said that before on the show. This guy went 2 years in Detroit without talking to the media. Like, he just quietly went about his business. That's not going to happen in Vancouver. So again, based on the mess that is the Vancouver Canucks defense, they need these two guys to be number 1 caliber defensemen. And number 1, Thatcher Demko, I think is pretty self-explanatory because of said messy defense. I think Thatcher Demko's got to play at a Vezina caliber level, which I think he can do. But coming off last season, he's got a hill to climb in terms of up in that save percentage. So
yeah,
the Canucks are not going anywhere. Like, Pettersson and Hughes can play their asses off. They can be the MVP conversation. The Canucks are not going to go anywhere this year if Thatcher Demko's average. So for me, Thatcher Demko is the Canuck facing the most pressure heading into this season.
I would have had, well, I guess the question is not like who's dealing with the most pressure. It's like who has the most pressure. And I guess that's why
who's facing the most pressure.
And I think that's why Quinn Hughes is like on this list. But I feel as if, again, Quinn Hughes is one of those guys where he doesn't even feel the pressure. This is like what he wants. He wants this. And I know it was only preseason hockey, not playing against the best competition, but you can already see a sense of elevated responsibility that, again, he's honing into. He's leaning into it. And we're going to see another level. Like, the pressure is good for that guy. For Hronek, dude, you mentioned it, Vancouver. It's different out here. But just play your game. Don't let the noise get to you. That's what the best players do, you know? Don't let the noise get to you. Don't make it an excuse. Just be that guy. And for yourself and for your family and for generations to come, go get paid. Be one of those guys. And you might get a head start because you get to play with Quinn Hughes. And it might complement your game really well, and you guys might become one of the best pairs in hockey. And then you got Thatcher Demko, who I do want to touch on a lot because I feel as if the Vancouver Canucks silently have been building this version of the Canucks, their short-term version of the Canucks. You know, a lot of these pro players that they're bringing in, blah, blah, blah. It's centered around more structure, centered around being better defensively, being better on the penalty kill, and ultimately making things easier for Thatcher Demko. Not because Demko can't handle the heat and whatnot, but I feel as if the Canucks, to succeed, need to give, again, Demko the runway to gain confidence and become that goalie again and not be peppered with so many high danger scoring chances game in and game out from the jump. So he needs to be able to make the most out of Vancouver essentially becoming a very boring team and make all the saves. I actually agree with you. I thought Pettersson was going to have the most pressure on him. I think Demko has the most pressure on him because I'm assuming that he wants to be known as one of the best goalies in the game. He has the talent to do so, but he's kind of fallen off the conversation, and he can really fall off the conversation if he has another average to below average year. And on the other end of the spectrum, if he does the most and again is protected and can lean off of more structure, just make saves and build up that goals against and that save percentage and be that guy, it's good for his reputation, but also it makes things easier for such a chaotic franchise. Like, you really talk about Quinn Hughes, Pettersson, and Demko a lot. Well, it's basically because we see the individual talent level, and there is a recipe for a miracle to happen if all those things do come to fruition and all those players essentially become top 5 in their positions. So that's my rant. We're staying happy. We're staying happy, baby. Go Canucks, go. We making the playoffs. We whooping the Oilers, okay? We whooping the Oilers.
Woo! I'm going to say this right now. I think the NHL is sleeping on Thatcher Demko. If you want to hear more about that, go check out an episode from a couple weeks back where we talked about how the rest of the NHL is disrespecting Thatcher Demko, not even sleeping on him. But hey, speaking of sleeping, I got to let you know, hockey is back, baby. Hockey is back on a daily basis. And if you're like me and you're a degenerate and you got to get your daily fantasy hockey fix, make sure you do it with the Sleeper app, okay? On the Sleeper app, you can bet on goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more. And guess what, Canucks fans? You get 100 times payouts on Sleeper. So start paying attention and get your picks right so you could win big. Okay, so use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's Locked On NHL.
People, before we get back to the show, baby, I gotta tell you that new episodes of Locked On Canucks will be available wherever you stream podcasts and on YouTube at 4:20 p.m. for no reason at all, okay? New episodes every day at 4:20 p.m. Again, wherever you stream podcasts and on YouTube. Let's get back to the show. Okay. You're back on Locked On Canucks. Kyle Bowen and Trevor Beggs with you because we're essentially here every day. I think we've dropped episodes 10 days in a row, 9 days in a row, and that's because we're addicted to the team that you're addicted to also. We're happy to have you with us today. Subscribe, hit the like button if you did enjoy today's episode, and don't do that if you didn't. It's all good. We are all Canucks, okay? Again, Beggsy, Bowen doing this, and maybe, just maybe, Beggsy and Bowen can be as good as Philip Hronek and Quinn Hughes this season. On the other end of the spectrum, as commentators, as the people being the connection between the team and the fans, maybe we can raise our standards to be one of the best duos in the game here. And I hope that Quinn Hughes and Hronek can be one of the best duos in the NHL too. And I'm really, really warming up to that idea because I'm getting a little desperate. You can't blame me too. No, you can't blame me too. Like, I'm thinking about it. Canucks need to get off to a good start. They need to be a good team, and it doesn't have to be a forever thing, but why not play those guys 27 to 30 minutes a game and just have a dynamic duo doing their thing and ultimately giving your team a better chance at winning games? I know it's scary and it sounds kind of stupid, but what are their other options?
Well, Kyle, I don't know if you got the bell lined up, but this feels like a little Beggsy versus Bowen here because let me tell you what, man. I mean, you talked about Hughes and Hronek being on the ice for 30 minutes a game. What about the other 30 minutes of the game, Kyle? What's going to happen in the other 30 minutes?
Prayers. Prayers and Demko and structure.
The other 30 minutes is a write-off, okay? The Canucks, again, this is just with Quinn Hughes on the ice last season, but, there was a point towards the end of the season where the Canucks were something like plus 24 in terms of even strength goal differential with Quinn Hughes and minus 41 without him. Okay. And that's with this guy playing, over a third of the game, pushing 25 minutes a night. I know that's all situations, but pushing 50% of the game at even strength. So, and Quinn, the Canucks need to spread out their defense. I mean,
the Canucks
sure,
need to
that's
win.
a great idea. Like putting Hughes and Hronek on what?
I said the Canucks need to win.
And they need to win by spreading out two guys like Hughes and Hronek on separate pairings. You got to spread out the wealth. The Canucks defense depth chart right now. I mean, our fans, everydayers know. If you're a casual fan, you probably know it's horrific.
Whoa.
If Hughes and Hronek are paired up together, Ian Cole and Tyler Myers, like you are praying. Okay, I talk about Canucks facing the most pressure. If Hughes and Hronek start the season together, Ian Cole is facing the most pressure because this guy not only has to be a top 4 defenseman, but he's got to prop up Tyler Myers or Noah Juleson beside him. Turn one of those guys into a top 4 defenseman. He's Ian Cole, not Jesus Cole. Okay, come on.
Oh, yeah, but doesn't he need a new contract too? Just lean on that, dude. Contract here, dude. Lean on it.
At 34 years old, man, again, I think it's a great idea, and I think Hughes and Hronek should be a pairing if the Canucks are trailing the third period. But you can't play these guys 30 minutes a night for 82 games of the season. I mean, if you make it to the playoffs, this is a different conversation, but you cannot start game 1 of the season with Hughes and Hronek on the same pairing. To me, it makes almost no sense.
They will,
unless, Ian Cole is the second coming of Quinn Hughes, which I don't see either.
Okay, Trevor, let's be honest and let's be real, okay? The Canucks decor has been such it's been a magic bullet, just been a blender throughout the preseason, and right at the end of the preseason, right at the end of training camp, on the eve of the regular season, we're seeing these two being paired up in practice. It's going to happen, bro. Whether it doesn't happen within the first 10 minutes of game 1, I feel like it's going to happen ASAP, and they're going to find some success, and they're going to lean on that as being one of their keys to success. Hey, come on, man. Back in the day, Chris Pronger and Scott Niedermayer played together, right?
Yeah, in the playoffs, man. In the playoffs, when they were competing for a Stanley Cup.
I compared Chris Pronger to Philip Hronek. With a deep forward
group around him.
Chris Pronger was 99 overall, man.
Hughes, Hronek compared to Scott Niedermayer and Chris Pronger, 2 Hall of Famers, man. Hey, Quinn Hughes might make the Hall of Fame. Philip Hronek, I think we're praying a bit if we're hoping he makes the Hall of Fame. And they also got no Francois Beauchemin on the team. Once the Ian Cole's Francois Beauchemin. So, this Hughes and Hronek might work for a game. It might work for 2 games. It might even work for 10 games. But eventually, this plan is going to blow up if they stick these 2 on the top pairing because there's not enough depth around them on the Canucks defense to support this kind of top pairing. So,
but what could support the other pairings is just not chasing the game, some confidence that. Are those two, when paired up together, producing more offense too? Essentially, the trickle-down effect. You know how we're hoping that there is somewhat of a trickle-down effect when Pettersson's putting up points and doing his thing and everyone gains some confidence? Again, essentially, I'm drawing that conclusion from, again, essentially having these two play together, which I'm warming up to, not only because I'm delusional and I'm just desperate for best case, how does this team, have an edge on other teams game in and game out? And it's okay, maybe they produce a pairing like that and it's just dynamic and blah, blah, blah. But I'm, again, getting close to signing a deal to this pairing because I'm seeing it in practice right before the season starts. And we saw Cole McWard play all preseason with Quinn Hughes pretty much, and this guy gets sent down. And I just feel like it's not reasonable, but it's going to happen. And it's going to look good. And then how are you going to run away from it? If it's one of the few good things you have when it comes to your decor. They're
going to run away from it if it's a situation like last season and the Canucks are suddenly the San Jose Sharks if Hughes and Hronek aren't on the ice. That's a situation where you run away from it. But again, that's looking long term. Again, let us know in the comments whether you think Hughes and Hronek should be a pair for the Canucks or whether you think it's just a bad idea. Are you on Team Begsy or are you on Team Bowen? Hey, no matter what team you're on, make sure you go and get a Jace case, okay, from Jace Medical. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace case. The Jace case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jace Medical, it's simple, baby, okay? They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Make sure you have a Jace case. Get $20 off life-saving antibiotics today from Jace Medical by using code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. jasemedical.com. That's jasemedical.com.
Okay, you're back on Locked On Canucks. Your Canucks every day. Kyle Bowen, Trevor Beggs, doing their thing on game day, and doing the most. Again, Trevor Beggs, Lake House in Ottawa, but he looks like he's somewhere else, man, like Antarctica. Like, it looks like he's being held hostage. Okay, for real. Let's be honest. Okay, but he's doing the most to make sure again he can talk Canucks with you every day, especially on game day against the Oilers. This is so ironic, right? Like, I don't think there's been a team in sports history that's emphasized or has had it emphasized that this team needs a better start. In the history of sports, I've never heard like you normally hear narratives about teams like, road to the cup. This team has the pieces to do it all. But over here in Vancouver, it's like, just get off to a good start. And that start and that good start ultimately has to come at the hands of the Oilers, one of the best teams in the West, led by two of the best players in the league, one of the best players in league history. Like, this is not going to be easy. Trevor, make it quick, make it short. We got to get out of here. But how did the Canucks ultimately beat the Edmonton Oilers?
I think it comes down to, I looked at the games from last season, okay? First off, the Canucks have lost 6 of their last 7 against they went 1-2 against them last season. But all the games have been close, okay? So I think it comes down to, goaltending at the end of the day. We talked about Thatcher Demko being the most important player for the Vancouver Canucks. He's going to have to be probably the most important player in these 2 games against the Edmonton Oilers. So in a close battle, I think it's Thatcher Demko's got to win the goaltending matchup. That's what it comes down to. There's lots of star power when these 2 teams meet up. I think both teams have, average depth, not great depth. And it comes down to goaltending for me. So Thatcher Demko facing the most pressure this season. I know the Canucks got to at least help him out a little bit here, but the Oilers are going to get their chances. I think Thatcher Demko is going to have a pretty awesome performance, and I think it can happen, okay? It's a motivated Canucks team right now, so I do think, the star power is going to shine. Maybe one secondary scoring type of goal. Thatcher Demko stands on his head. I see the Canucks eking out a 1-goal victory on home ice against the Edmonton Oilers. Let's go, baby.
Let's beat these guys twice, okay? And I think it's easy to say, let's win the goaltending matchup. Let's protect Demko. Let's have him have some confidence and then have him stand on his head when he needs to against these 2 guys. We just talked about Quinn Hughes and Hronek possibly being paired up. Okay, maybe those 2 can be super optimal against Draisaitl and McDavid. But how about this? Okay, we're talking about Elias Pettersson, all right? Contract year. It's a big deal. One of the biggest deals in the NHL right now. And you're up against Connor McDavid in game 1. How about you do something? How about you do something big? How about you will this team to a couple victories? It's the truth. Everyone's going to be watching. You want that big contract, it's going to happen, but you really want that big contract? Make sure everyone's talking about it now. And you can do that with a stellar performance. Like, just be better than McDavid and Draisaitl. It's not going to happen every game, obviously, but be better than Draisaitl and McDavid during this 2-game stretch, because, again, this team cannot get their ass kicked in these games. That can't happen. They can't even go 0-2 if they lose both games by 1. No, they need to win games. They need to quiet the noise. Winning fixes everything, and I think Pettersson has to be a little accountable here and put the team on his backpack and get some dubs for the Vancouver Canucks, okay? That's what's going to happen throughout the season, but essentially it has to happen from the jump against the Oilers, against the best in the league, and Pettersson, again, just be that guy for us. Do something, like J-Pat says, right? Do something grand. Anyways, that was a shorter episode of Locked On Canucks. Hey, we got things moving again. Trevor Beggs got family all over him, okay? He's on daddy duty on another level, but he's also on Canuck duty on another level as well, and we appreciate that. Again, that was another episode of Locked On Canucks. Subscribe, hit the like button if you enjoyed the show, and Trevor, sign us out.
Yeah, I'm stoked for the Canucks season to start, but I'm even more stoked that you decided to join us here on this episode of Locked On Canucks. Shout out to the everydayers, the occasional listeners, and the new subscribers, baby. The road to 1,000 is on. We're pushing it. We're getting closer. I do hope that we'll hit 1,000 subscribers before Tyler Myers hits 1,000 games. And he needs to play 82 more games to hit that mark. Locked On Canucks, we got you covered on the games, okay, the trades, the rumors, and all kinds of other ideas Canuck related that are popping into our head. So make sure you stay tuned for the ride. But for now, I'm Trevor Beggs, that guy's Kyle Bowen, and you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.